Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting set of notes here today, all focused on a specific business challenge.
Yeah, something pretty critical for anyone in rentals.
Exactly. It's not just about, having the assets. It's about figuring out if they're actually working for you, making money.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're talking about getting a handle on rental utilization metrics. I mean, this is really the heart of profitability, of growth in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's the difference between, just having stuff in a warehouse and running a really high-performing business.
And these sources you shared, they're great because they offer specific ways to measure this, going beyond just, is it rented out, yes or no?
Right.
And I really like how they use these contrasting examples, the big heavy equipment versus party supplies. It makes it really clear.
Yeah, the bobcat and the wine glass, basically. They show the concept so differently. So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to unpack these different metrics. We want to help you understand what each one actually tells you about performance, about the bottom line.
Okay.
And, how looking at these numbers can lead to smarter decisions.
Okay, let's get into it then. We're going to walk through these different ways to measure utilization. We'll define them, give the formulas.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts. And then use those examples, the bobcat, the wine glass, to really show what they mean in practice. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's kick things off where most people probably start thinking about rentals. Time. How much time is it out?
Yes, time utilization. It's pretty foundational. Basically, it's the percentage of time an asset is actually rented versus the total time it could have been rented.
Okay.
It helps you understand, how often your stuff is actually in use by a customer.
And the way you figure that out is time rented, total time available by 100, right?
Straight percentage.
So the Bobcat example from the notes, it was available all year, 365 days, but only rented for 180 days.
Right. So you run the numbers.
Okay, 180, 365 by 100. That comes out to what? Just under 50%? 49.3%?
Yeah, 49.3%. So less than half the available time.
Which, for a big piece of equipment like that, tells you it's sitting idle more often than not.
And that number immediately makes you think, right? It prompts questions. Do we need more marketing? Is our pricing off? Should we look at listing it elsewhere?
It flags up a potential demand issue.
Definitely. Now, contrast that with the wine glass example.
Okay.
The source says a batch was rented for only 30 days out of the whole year.
Wow. Okay. So 365 by 100.
Yeah.
That's tiny.
Yeah.
8.2%.
A really low 8.2%. And the insight here is totally different. It suggests, maybe very limited demand, or perhaps it's super seasonal.
Right.
For something you might have hundreds or thousands of, like glasses. A rate that low can mean you're holding way too much inventory, or maybe you need to think about sub-renting during peaks.
The gap between 49% and 8% is huge. It really highlights how different assets behave.
Totally different challenges.
Okay, so that's time. Let's shift gears from how long it's rented to how much money it brings in.
Yes, this brings us to dollar utilization. And this one's crucial because it links revenue directly to the asset's cost.
How so?
It measures the revenue an asset generates as a percentage of its original purchase price.
Yeah.
So it shows how effectively you're monetizing that initial investment.
Okay, and the formula for that?
It's revenue generated at asset cost by 100.
Right. So back to the Bobcat. It cost $50,000, and the source said it brought in $20,000 revenue.
Yeah.
So $20,000, $50,000 by 100, that's 40%.
40%, meaning in that year, it generated revenue equal to 40% of what you paid for it. A higher percentage here means a faster payback, better performance relative to cost.
Okay, makes sense. Now, the wine glasses. A batch of 100 cost $500, earned $200.
So you calculate that, 200, 500 by 100.
It's also 40%.
Exactly. And this is like a really important point the sources make. The percentage is the same, but the context is completely different.
Right.
40% utilization on a $50K asset means $20,000 revenue. 40% on a $500 batch of glasses is just $200 revenue.
Ah, right. So dollar utilization is great for comparing performance relative to cost.
But you can't lose sight of the actual dollar amounts involved.
Yeah.
The Bobcat's impact on the overall business is way bigger.
Precisely. It tells you where to focus your efforts for maximum revenue impact.
Got it. Okay, so we've done time, we've done revenue versus cost. What about just the physical stuff?
Yeah.
Managing the number of items.
That's where physical utilization comes in. This is super relevant when you've got lots of the same item.
Like the wine glasses.
Exactly. Or chairs, tables, whatever. It's simply the number of units you have rented out versus the total number you own.
Okay.
Kind of a basic stock check. Number of units rented, total units available by 100.
So if you own, say, 3 Bobcats and usually 2 are out on rent.
That's 3 by 100, so about 66.7%.
Which sounds pretty good for expensive items.
Yeah.
Most of your capital's working.
Right. If that number dropped, you might think, maybe we have one too many Bobcats right now.
But then the wine glasses, you have 1,000 units. And even during peak season, maybe only 300 are rented.
So 300, 1,000 by 100, that's only 30%.
Ouch. Even at peak time. Yeah. A 30% physical utilization, even during peak, strongly suggests you're carrying excess inventory. For those bulk items, this metric is critical for managing storage costs, capital tied up in stock. It's a different kind of optimization challenge.
Right. Totally different from managing just 3 big machines. Okay, let's drill down a bit. What about performance on a daily basis?
Good question. That leads us to revenue per day, or RPD. This is the average revenue an asset generates for each day it's actually rented out.
Okay, so it tells you your effective daily earning rate.
Exactly. And it's key for informing your pricing strategy. The calculation is straightforward. Total revenue, total days rented.
So for the Bobcat, $20,000 revenue over 180 rental days.
Yep. $20,000 divided by 180.
Comes out to $111.11 per day.
Right. And knowing that RPD is vital, is $111 enough? Does it cover costs, generate profit, reflect market value? If it seems low, maybe you need to adjust your daily rate or think about bundling.
And the wine glasses. $200 revenue, 30 rental days.
$200 divided by 30. That's $6.67 per day.
Okay, much smaller number, obviously.
Yeah, and a low RPD like that might indicate your per item pricing is too low, or perhaps they often get bundled into larger, low-margin packages. Tracking RPD helps you tweak pricing item by item.
Makes sense. So all these metrics, time, dollars, units, daily earnings, they all feed into the ultimate question, right? Profitability.
Absolutely. And that brings us squarely to return on investment, or ROI.
The big one.
Kind of, yeah. It measures the profitability of an asset compared to its original cost. It's like the overall grade for that investment.
And the formula is net profit from asset cost of asset by 100. You need to remember net profit is revenue minus costs.
Crucial point. So for the Bobcat, cost $50K, revenue $20K, and the source mentioned $5K in costs.
Okay, so net profit is $15,000.
That's 30%.
That's $30,000 by 100.
That's 30%.
That's 30 per thousand ROI in a year. That indicates the Bobcat is a pretty solid, profitable investment, pulling its weight.
Okay, now the wine glasses cost $500, revenue $200, and let's say $50 in costs, cleaning, breakage.
Right.
Net profit is $150.
So the calculation, $150, $500 by 100.
Wait, it's also 30% ROI? Bingo. Again, the percentage matches. This really hammers home that point from dollar utilization.
Yeah.
While the glasses might have a decent ROI percentage on their low cost, the absolute profit, the actual dollars hitting your bank account, is tiny compared to the Bobcat, 150 of yours, $15,000.
So you need both perspectives. The percentage tells you if an item is efficient relative to its cost, but the absolute dollars tell you where the real impact on overall business profit lies. You got to focus on boosting those high dollar generators.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And speaking of costs eating into profit, maintenance is a big one, especially for equipment.
Right, which leads to the next metric, maintenance cost utilization.
Yeah, this looks at maintenance costs specifically as a percentage of the revenue that asset brought in. It shows how much maintenance is dragging down profitability for that specific item.
Okay, the formula is maintenance cost revenue generated by 100.
So for the Bobcat,
Yeah.
$5,000 maintenance costs on $20,000 revenue.
That's 5,000, 20,000 by 100, 25%.
25%. A quarter of its earnings go straight back into keeping it running.
Yeah.
That's significant.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if you could lower that.
Exactly. It prompts investigating preventative maintenance, maybe better service deals, or even asking if it's getting too old and costly.
And the wine glasses. $20 maintenance on $200 revenue.
$200 by 100. That's 10%.
Much lower.
Much more favorable. It shows that for these items, the ongoing costs are pretty well managed relative to what they earn, helping their specific profit margin, even if the total revenue is small. Highlights the different cost structures.
Okay, let's zoom out again. Thinking about managing groups of similar items, like a whole fleet of Bobcats.
That's the fleet utilization rate. It's basically the physical utilization idea applied across your whole fleet of a certain type of asset.
Right, so number of fleet assets rented total fleet assets by 100.
If you own 5 Bobcats and typically 3 are out.
That's 5 by 100, so 60%.
Yeah, 60%. So Decent utilization across the fleet, but definitely room to improve. Maybe run a promotion specifically on Bobcats.
And for the 1,000 wine glasses with 300 rented at peak.
We're back to 300, 1,000 by 100 equals 30%.
That 30% again.
Yeah, and looking at it fleet-wide, like this just reinforces the message from physical utilization. For these high-volume items, 30% suggests you probably got too much stock sitting around. Or you need strategies to boost off-peak rentals.
Okay, now another angle. How often are things actually ready to be rented, not down for maintenance or cleaning?
Availability rate, super important. It's the percentage of time an asset is actually available and ready to go versus being unavailable for any reason, maintenance, cleaning, repair, whatever.
Calculation, available days, total days by 100.
So if the Bobcat was out of service for 20 days in the year for maintenance.
It was available for 345 days out of 365. 365 by 100. About 94.5% available.
Which is pretty good. High availability maximizes the chance to earn revenue. A low number here would be a serious concern about your maintenance process or the asset's condition.
And the wine glasses. Maybe unavailable 5 days total for cleaning cycles, dealing with breakage.
So available 360 days, 363.65 by 100. That's like 98.6%. Very high.
So they're almost always ready.
Yeah, and it highlights the different reasons for unavailability too, right? Mechanical downtime for the Bobcat versus like operational process time for the glasses. Both need efficient management, but the tasks are different.
That makes total sense. Okay, we've covered a lot. Time, money, stock, costs, availability. What about the process between rentals? Getting things ready quickly.
Right, that's turnaround time. This is simply how long it takes to get an asset ready for the next customer after it comes back.
And faster is obviously better.
Absolutely. Faster turnaround means more available rental days, which boosts potential utilization and revenue.
The Bobcat example mentioned it takes 2 days for inspection, cleaning, service. That's 2 days it's off the market each time it comes back.
Exactly. If you could streamline that, maybe get it down to 1 day, that's potentially a lot more rental days added over the year.
And for the wine glasses, maybe it takes 1 day currently to clean, check, repackage a large order.
But imagine during a busy wedding season, if you could optimize that process down to half a day, that could make a huge difference in capturing back-to-back bookings for high-volume items.
Yeah, the efficiency gains matter more when the volume is high.
For sure. The complexity is different, heavy machinery versus bulk cleaning, but optimizing turnaround is key for both.
Okay, and what about the time when an asset is available, it's not being turned around, but it's just sitting there, not rented?
That's idle time.
Yeah,
it's basically the time an asset is doing nothing productive, is not earning revenue, and it's not being prepped. Just sitting idle.
Which is pure lost opportunity.
Exactly. The source mentioned the Bobcat sits idle 150 days a year. That's 150 days that could have potentially earned that $111 RPD we calculated earlier.
Oof, that adds up.
It really does. Reducing idle time through better marketing, dynamic pricing, whatever works, is a direct way to improve profitability.
And for the wine glasses, idle time might be really high in the off-season, right?
Definitely. So your strategy there might be different, maybe deep discounts in winter, or finding alternative uses or markets to keep them moving, anything to reduce that long stretch of idleness. The pattern of idle time varies hugely.
Planning ahead seems crucial too. How much notice do you get?
That's booking lead time. The average time between when someone books and when the rental actually starts. It's vital for planning inventory and operations.
So the Bobcat notes said customers book about 3 days in advance.
Which gives you a bit of breathing room for scheduling, prep, or transport. If that lead time started shrinking, you'd need faster internal processes, or maybe even more buffer inventory.
Whereas the wine glasses for big events are often booked weeks or months ahead.
Right. That long lead time makes planning much easier, scheduling cleaning crews, ensuring you have enough stock, coordinating deliveries. It reduces operational friction. The difference in lead times dictates a lot about how you plan.
Okay, one last metric. Let's bring it all back to profit again, but maybe look at the margin on each item.
Yeah, profit margin per asset. This drills down into the profit generated by each asset after accounting for all its direct costs, expressed as a percentage of its revenue.
So how much of each revenue dollar is actual profit for that specific item?
Exactly. The formula is revenue costs, revenue by 100.
So Bobcat, $20K revenue, $5K costs, net profit $15K.
Okay, $15,000, $20,000 by 100.
75% margin. That sounds really good.
It's very healthy. It means for every dollar the Bobcat brings in, 75 cents flows through as profit after covering its direct costs.
And the wine glass, $200 revenue, $50 costs, Net profit, $150.
So $150, $200 by 100.
It's 75% again.
Isn't that striking? Same percentage margin, wildly different asset.
It really hammers home that final point, doesn't it? A good percentage margin is great. You want efficiency.
Absolutely.
But for driving the overall business profit, you have to focus energy on maximizing the performance and revenue from those assets like the Bobcat that generate significant absolute dollar profit, even if smaller items look just as good on a percentage basis.
That's the key takeaway, really. You need to look at both the percentage efficiency and the total dollar impact.
Wow, okay. That was quite the journey through, 12 different metrics?
I think so. From time and money to inventory, levels, costs, availability, the rental cycle.
It really shows how many angles there are to understanding how your assets are performing.
And the sources really emphasize that you need to understand and optimize all of them, or at least the relevant ones for each asset type. It's about making data-driven decisions.
Using the numbers to boost profit, cut waste, maximize ROI.
Exactly. That's the goal.
The notes also mention that, using rental management software, like the Rent Anything store platform they referenced, can make tracking all this stuff much easier.
Yeah, trying to do this manually across a diverse inventory would be challenging, to say the least.
Yeah.
Having the data accessible is key. Which, leaves us with a final thought, perhaps a provocative one for you listening. Given this whole array of metrics, and the fact that pushing one up might affect another, like maybe renting out more glasses, increases cleaning turnaround time.
Right, there are trade-offs.
Exactly. So how do you find the optimal balance across your whole fleet, especially when you have things as different as Bobcats and wine glasses? Which metrics do you prioritize for which items? And how do you really gauge the health of the entire business when the numbers for individual assets can look so dramatically different?
Definitely something to chew on as you look at your own operations and your own data. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into rental utilization metrics. Hopefully this gives you some new ways to think about your assets. Keep exploring.